Hello, welcome to the 8th episode of Ecological Dynamics of Skill. Today, Pedro Passos and I will discuss the relevance of considering the specific constraints for each sport to improve practice and performance. This is the case of futsal, which sometimes is seen as a donor sport for football, but in fact it is a sport in its own right. For this discussion, we have Dr. Bruno Travassos from University of Beira Interior, who is not only a high-level researcher in sport sciences with emphasis in futsal, but he has been also a coach for Portuguese First Division teams and member of the technical staff for the futsal Portuguese team. I had the pleasure to supervise his PhD thesis almost 10 years ago, and he was consistently opened the path for research specifically addressing individual and team behavior in futsal, developing many new methodological applications to sports science. He belongs to a gold generation of PhD students embracing ecological dynamics. At the time Bruno was starting, he had the company of Wanda Correia, Pedro Esteves, João Carvalho, Ricardo Duarte, Luís Vilar, José Lopes, Ana Paulo, coinciding with the time Pedro Passos was finalizing his PhD work. What a dream team. Bruno, it is really a pleasure to have you here, and I would like to ask, how did you start to introduce ecological dynamics concepts into high-level futsal practices, and how receptive was Jorge Brás, the national coach, considered the last years to be the best futsal coach in the world? Please, Bruno.
Well, good morning, and thank you for the invitation to be here. I'm really honored to participate in these sessions with you, Duarte, and with Pedro. Two of my scientific references during my PhD, and after that during all over all these years. And it is a pleasure also to be part of it with other guys that are using ecological dynamics and that are references for me over the world. And so I hope to add something new for you, and at the least that gives some ideas for discussion and for thinking for the future. Between players on relative velocity training sessions to improve the transfer between the training to the field. And more than that, what is the information that coaches really need to look to try to understand for an individual defense, the way of looking of players looking, or the way of players explore the interpersonal relations architecture. So it's very interesting because it will have impact in all the process of match analysis, but also have a huge impact in the way that they will design the training sessions for practice. And I think that this is our first contribution to the field, and the first idea that we put during the last years. And I think that at this moment, coaches are really understanding that. And our message, I think that our message was easy to implement during these years because Jorge Brás, since the beginning, understand it and try to use it and put it in practice. Related with that, the other part of the story is that, well, we try to understand the information, but we need to put the information in the training sessions. And the idea that we explore also during the PhD and after the PhD was how representative these training sessions are, or what are the transfer of these training sessions to the match and to the behavior that players want to improve to the match. And I think that at this moment, we capture very well the idea of representative design, because we are moving at that time, 10 years ago, but at this moment also, but more at 10 years ago, from an analytical perspective of the design of training sessions and one perspective of repetition for stability. And we move on for the idea of the manipulation of the small-sided and conditioned games, in which the players need to try to develop the same relations that they have on the match. However, at this moment and after these years, I think now we are move on for a new problem, because all the coaches are using small-sided games, but not, I think, in my perspective, and this is one idea to explore for the future, I think that all small-sided games are specific from futsal, or almost of them, but I think that the small-sided games, almost some of them are representative of what the coach wants to put in practice on the match. And there are other small-sided games that are not representative of the coach wants to put in practice on the match. Because the information that players use on different small-sided games could be different, could could potentiate different functional behaviors and guide the players in different perspectives according to what the coach wants. And again, related with the strategical relationship that coach wants to implement on the match. And I think that this is one of the ideas that we need to improve for the future. I think that the coaches are, the best coaches understand that. And this is why the best coaches don't have so much small-sided games to put in practice and have the best exercises that they choose. And they say that, no, this is my exercises, and that are the exercises that really help me to achieve our goals. So the good news is that we have more problems to explore in the future. And I think that this idea of specificity and representative design are very nice to explore in the future, and needs other things that I think that it was really improved in the last years, and we need to move on that idea. That is, we need to understand what coaches think about, what is the idea of coaches. We need to capture what they look for, what they want to, in order to try to understand their perspective, how they are looking to the game, and what they want to do or improve with the players. And the other part of this is that I think that we should improve also for the future, to improve our practice and the practice of coaches, is to understand the idea of affordances. During a lot of time, we only look to the information and for the decisional process. We need to link it with the capabilities of the players. The player is faster, is slower, is have more agility, have more relationship with the ball, is left foot, right foot, or whatever. So I think that we need to try to better characterize this perceptual motor landscape in order to try to improve our practice, but not our practice as researchers or as professors, but to improve the practice of the coaches.
Let me just touch on 2 points. I think you did a brilliant reflection about these issues. I'd like to emphasize 2 aspects, which I think it's quite interesting for us to consider. The one is that it's not simply to present a small-sided game for you to have a representative task. It's much more than that. Each small-sided game, each exercise for training has its own functions to be trained, to be worked on. And if you want to do other functions, so you should do other exercises. And how this should be developed is something that we don't know much about. We know that this function can be worked with this exercise, but if we want to link it with other functions of the match, that they appear intertwined in the match, we don't know much about that. So that is a very, very interesting point. The second one, which I would like to emphasize because recently it has been discussed a lot, is that you are saying that affordances cannot be understood without the effectivities. We cannot understand simple information without understanding the skills of the players. And these 2 concepts should be worked with each other and not independently, not just create a very good informational environment for people who don't know how to act upon them, who don't have the skills to act upon them. And that I think is a very good point, that affordances should be understood in terms of effectivity, not independently. Thanks very much for your reflection. I would just like to emphasize this because it is so rich. And now I leave it to Pedro to the next
Okay.
questions.
Yeah. Thanks, Art, and thanks for your presentation, Bruno. So, my first question is: you are a coach. So, based on this kind of this theoretical approach, how can you plan your work during? I'm not trying to plan for an entire season, but how do you plan your work for instance, 3 weeks or 6 weeks? What is the basis? Uh, well, I'm also, as you know, I was also a coach, and I plan my work. I like to work in plans of 3 weeks with the assessments during the matches. But I know that at the end of 3 weeks, I need to change something, and I hope my players within 3 weeks may achieve some kind of qualities, some kind of skills, some kind of technical and tactical skills. So, but my main question and my main concern for now regarding ecological dynamics and the constraint-based approach is how do we plan our work in order to see where the players will be within 3 weeks when it is time to change or not?
This is, I'm afraid of your questions, you know. So this is a very complex question.
It is.
But indeed, I think that the first thing that we cannot forget is where I want to be after these 3 weeks, what I need to develop at the end. At the end, I want to be here. But at this moment, I'm here, and what I need to develop. But in my opinion, we cannot. I have some difficulty to plan more than 1 week because we can define some of the main goals of each week. We can define some of the main aspects that we want to improve based also on the team that we will play against. But I think that we need to move on from what is our goal at this moment. And I think that we should use the competition as the way of as the test. Let's see if I'm improving my issues. And after that, my perspective, we are always balancing between what we want in terms of complexity of the development of our ideas in the team, or the less complexity to stabilize some of the behaviors that we want. Because I think that, and I don't know if you agree, but in my experience, when we change so much things faster, we lose the process. So we need to stabilize the behaviors, and we need to, sometimes put some variability to add new things, to add new ideas, to put something new in the exercise that help the players to explore more.
Okay, Bruno, just let me ask you one thing based on what you just said. When it is time, when do you know it is time to increase the variability or add some more variability or simply change something during the training? When do you know? Because this is a question that I really discussed. I discussed this with my students. When it is time to change, when it is time to have variability to the process.
I think that you have different levels of analysis that you need to understand here. Is if imagine that I cannot reach the goal that I propose for the players or for the team. If it is a problem of a player that consecutively not do the right thing or the thing that help the balance between on the team, we need to have an intervention with that player. But for instance, if the team based on different exercises with different variability or different complexity, if they achieve consecutively the goal that you want to, so you need to change, you need to add something new. So in my perspective is the achievement. I'm achieving a new path. I'm achieving a new step, and so I need to put something new. But I need to achieve not only in this exercise. I need
Yeah.
to achieve consecutively in different exercises, in different contexts, as if you want.
When the things become stable, it is time to have variability.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I think
when the things come
when the
to
outcome,
be
when the
stable,
outcome, yeah, when
be
the outcome
stable, but in a
successfully.
different context,
Yeah.
not in the same context. More than the stability is the capability of
that's
players
right, that's right.
to be adaptable to the achievement that you want.
No, great. Thanks, Bruno. Now, when I think a little bit different question now, it's you talk about the affordances and the perspective information that guide the player's behavior. And when we talk about representative learning design, how do you know that an exercise that you plan, that you use on your training sessions, it is representative of what happens during a match? It's beyond our personal feelings that we may have regarding, okay, this is representative or not. Can we provide some clues for the audience or for the future coaches in order that, okay, I'm doing this kind of exercise and this is representative, and we know that representative have some different levels of representativeness. We can have for instance, if we have some kind of exercise and we ask the defenders to not be so aggressive, not be so be a little bit more passive, this decreases or increases the level of representativeness. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience regarding, okay, how can I manage this kind of representativeness?
I don't have a measure for it. I
Yeah,
think
we
that
don't.
at this moment we should use the video to try to understand if we want to put in practice is occurring on the training sessions. And I think again we have different levels of analysis again. So I should have an exercise that and I need to understand if this exercise is promoting individually the behaviors that I want to occur on the match, and I could evaluate if the player is doing or is adapting his behavior according to my expectations, or if I'm looking to the team, I need to go to the game model and try to understand, and the game model need to have such information, how I will adapt to pressure the opponent team, how will adapt my behavior when I playing against a team that plays in the offensive system 1-3-1. So based on that, I have the picture. I know the functional behaviors that I want to occur on the match based on the interpersonal relations, for instance, between the players. And based on that, I look for the match, I look for the training sessions, and I try to compare. Because as a coach and also during my time of intervention in the national team, all the training sessions are recorded. So based on that, we could use the training sessions and the exercises to try to understand and to link behaviors that we want to the match. In some of the exercises of the small-sided games, the behavior that we want to transfer to the match is not so easy to understand, to observe. But this is what the best coaches do, is trying to manage the different levels of analysis of the game to try to improve the behavior that they want. So what is the behavior that I want to occur in a 2-against-2 situation? And the players, when play the 2-against-2, are not looking for what's happened on the match, or are not thinking about what's happened on the match. So the coach need to use their intervention, their feedback, to try to guide the players to the information that they should use, that help them to explore that functional behaviors that they want to transfer to the global behavior of the team. So we need to always come to the players, to the team. And in my opinion, the most important thing is that coaches need to have all the strategical plan for the team defined, and need to look to the information that help them to understand if really what they want to occur is happening on the training session. So the capacity of the coach to look to the match and identify the information that is really important to the players use during the match is fundamental in my perspective.
Okay, so it's the ongoing perspective information is really the main support for the players to decide and behave within a competitive match. But now I have one final question before I pass the ball to Duarte. In your training sessions, do you practice fixed movements, the plays, for instance, attacking plays? You do that? Just yes or no? You do.
Yes.
I know you do.
Yes.
May I ask you why? What is the usefulness of practice fixed movements if then the player's decisions and actions are mainly supported on perspective information, which is ongoing, which is quite dependent of the way each players behave and interact with the opponents and also with the teammates. So what is the usefulness of the plays, of this kind of plays?
Yes, I think that I can say you that it is correct or not to use such exercises depends of your goal with that exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And if your goal, your focus on with that exercise was the creation of synergies between players of your own team, even without the information that they should use to decide during the match, I think you should use it, because that synergies, the players at the first, since the beginning, I think that before you look to the others, to your opponents in collective terms, you should look to your teammates. And you can start to forge the synergies between them, the moves, the possibilities for action in terms of collective exploration, going the global to the local. But after that, you need to go from the local to the global, improving the process of the decision making from the player to the opponent, to the teammates, to the other opponents, to try to start again to forge the collective behavior. At this moment, I have another perspective in the past, but at this moment, I think that we should move more from the individual to the team than to the team to the individual, because I think that the collective options, the collective possibilities for action emerge more from the players than the options of the players emerge from the team. I don't know if I can explain it very well.
We understand.
But I think that you could start to create the basis for the team, but after that you need to go to move on to the player and to the tactical behavior of the player in order to start to manage the relationship with opponents and with teammates.
Okay, very interesting discussion. Let me just see if I'm getting it in the way you are saying, and I think this links both questions that Pedro just asked. The first thing is that I really like you saying that something to be representative it has to do with what the coach see that the team will face in the next match. For example, by analyzing previous matches of the team you are going to playing against, you see that there are some spatial temporal constraints that they will be facing, and he wants the team to train that. So somehow this information and these affordances are theory based, are based on the understanding of the coach from what their players will be facing. And the second part, which is the most difficult one, is you cannot measure this, because to act upon those affordances is something that you don't know how much time it will take. For example, you can face very severe spatial temporal constraints, and during the week the players may not overcome those constraints, so you don't have a measure of how they can behave in the competition. But this is an issue not of the design, but of the effectivities that you were saying before. So I think this, if we understand this, as you said in the beginning, if you understand the affordances as intimately linked with effectivities, we have to see really a more complex view of how representativeness is about. It's not simply about design, it's also how your effectivities are moving towards meeting those constraints. And I think this is something quite interesting to think about, as you said in the beginning. And I think also it links with with one of the last questions from Pedro, about these plays that you are training. So these plays may not be so much, and I think this is a good question that Pedro raised, about the perspective information, but you are doing something to the effectivities of the players that your intuitions, Bruno, says that they may be useful to then deal with those affordances that they will face. Maybe if there is some kind of decoupling, which maybe we can discuss further in the new episode, but I think what you are saying is that I have to train the players for effectivities, otherwise they cannot face those affordances. And I think this is quite interesting because this links all the things we've been discussing during this session. This makes sense to you, Bruno? What do you comment? How do you comment?
I completely agree with you, and maybe I could link this discussion with the paper of Carl Woods, in which he tried to measure the representative design based on the time that the player has the ball, based on the number of players that are surrounding the player with the ball. This is really interesting to measure the representative design, the space-time constraints of the player with the ball in relation to the match. And it will help to decide or to understand that, as occurs in physiology, that all the people are looking for the worst case scenarios of the match in terms of the running distances or whatever. So we are saying that this is the representative design, but I think that the representative design is more than that, because it's not only the player in his own capabilities and his time with this time or with this space to play, but need to be the player in relation to the effectivities of the team and the game model of the team. So this is why I think that it's so difficult to measure this idea of representative design. And I think that maybe we could move on for a perspective of individual representative design, and it's amazing and it's very good. And I think that is easily to measure it and to understand it in relation to the requirements of the match, of the performance context. But in collective terms, I think that is a little bit difficult, because sometimes we need also to decouple some of the behaviors to also improve after that the behavior of the team. I don't know.
Yeah. We have to search more for team effectivities, not just individual, but team effectivities. Some interesting concepts. Pedro, would you like to raise some of the questions from the chat?
Yeah, I really like one here, the first one from Pedro Luis Salles, where he asks, what is the direct relationship of learning in futsal being transferred to soccer, since this argument is used a lot? So is it possible to transfer something from the futsal to the outdoor soccer?
Yeah, I think that is possible to transfer something from futsal to football, but also from football to futsal.
Yeah, exactly.
Both are donor from one to each other. And this is a very a great theme for discussion in Brazil, and Brazilian guys love this discussion. And I have the pleasure to be part of the judge of the master of the Marquinhos Xavier, the national coach of Brazil. And his master thesis was about that. And he interviews a lot of ex-players from football and for football. And the idea is that the players that start in football improve a lot their capability to decide and act in small spaces. So they have more skilled with the ball. They are faster with the ball and have better skills with the ball and have better capabilities to decide and act. Also, when they move on for football. But the guys that start in football and after that comes to futsal are more stronger, have their physical capabilities are more developed during the process, during the beginning stages of players' development. So I think that more than to talk in the why or how futsal and football could be combined, we need to understand is, and we know that we need to understand that during the process of players' development, they should practice a lot of modalities. And if they can practice individual sports, team sports, or sports that improve their motor capabilities and the perceptive capabilities, well, I think that we will contribute for the development of higher skilled players.
Yeah, but I think you agree that futsal and football have different affordances, because as you said, the speed is different, the space is different, so the affordances can be perceived differently from a futsal player from a football player. So in that sense, I'm not sure if we can talk about some kind of transfer from one sport to the other. I think the variability that you spoke now, that the players should play, especially during the development, that players should play different team sports and should perform different motor activities, because this will increase the variability of the movement. I agree, but I'm not sure if the highest level, if we are aiming to go for some kind of transfer from one situation to the other. I have a few doubts. I would like to hear the opinion of both of you guys.
This is a fantastic idea, and I will try to answer as better as I can. I think, and I do that transfer a lot of times with the research. So in futsal, we have much less research in small-sided games than in football. And in almost of the times, I use the principles that other guys discover in football, for instance, with the manipulation of small-sided games, and I transport them for the futsal and try to understand if the functional behavior is similar, for instance, in terms of individual tactical behavior and team tactical behavior and in physiological aspects. If we talk in general functional behaviors of the teams and the players, the behaviors are quite similar. If you are looking for individual skills, so they are quite different. If you are looking for strategical moves and patterns of play, yes, for sure. If even inside of each modality, the functionality of behaviors are different. When we are looking for different sports, for sure, and the ball is quite different. The way of playing and the supporting the defense or the attack, the strategies to do that are quite different. So the main affordances for each sport are really completely different.
Yeah, Eduardo.
I fully endorse what Bruno just said. I think for you to train something, you have to know what you want to achieve with that training.
Exactly.
And not simply because of playing futsal, you are learning football. You may not be learning football at all. So it depends on what you are really training that may help you in football or vice versa. I really like how Bruno put it.
Yeah, and I think that is if we can compare, we can say that if we use the same exercise in futsal and football, both exercises are specific from the modality.
Exactly.
If we adjust the ball, the field, the area of play, but are not representative of the match that you want to play.
Yeah. So talking about Brazilian futsal, we have Tiago André Rigon, that you know well, Bruno, and he's talking about the constraints of the approach use ecophysical variables. So because of this, what do you think, Bruno, about notational analysis and observational grids for capturing, for analyzing the behavior in futsal?
I think that both should be used with different perspectives. When I finish my PhD, I will say, notational I don't like it. I don't know what's happened. And I don't know nothing, and I don't want to know nothing about interviews to coaches, players, or something like that, because our perspective is too narrow and we are very focused in what we are doing. At this moment, my perspective is quite different, because I think that all the information could be valuable if we know or if we understand what we are looking for. If we are looking for measures that help us to describe the match, the notational analysis could be fine. If we are looking for patterns of play, we cannot look to the notational analysis variables because they only describe the result. So if we want to understand the process, we need to move on to ecological ecophysic variables, or we need to analyze the match in its dynamics. And regarding to that, I think that sometimes we are extrapolating a lot, and even using some ecophysical variables, sometimes we put all the variables together or put all the moments of the match together, and our results maybe in some moments are not so reliable as we want to. So my advice for the future, and I think that this is the new perspectives for the future for a long time ago, is we need to really understand the dynamics, and the dynamics related with the moments of the match. And we need to try to link the dynamics with actions that are occurring over the match. So we need to link the what with what is occurring and why is occurring. Yeah. So based on this perspective, I think that it is great. And this is the way that coaches look to the match, trying to understand what's happened on the video with these highs, with the best research that they have, linking with the actions that are occurring on the match. So we need to capture that behavior of the coaches and put them in physical terms.
Yeah. Very good. So it's not a question of a problem with the tools, but the problem is how you use them and for what you are using them.
Bart, we have two great questions here from Susana Santos.
Yeah, last questions.
Okay, so Bruno, you mentioned you had variability once a stable state has been achieved within the team. However, each player evolves at different rates. And the second question is, how can you account for such individual specificities, given that you want the team to evolve and adapt to a new state as a whole?
Great questions. Well, the first one, all the exercises have variability, and we could change the variability of the small-sided games in different levels also. So when I say that I just have more variability when the team behavior are more stable, yes, but here we have a lot of variability, but variability that tries to players stabilize their behaviors or achieve some adaptability in that level. After that, we will go to the next one. The other question is the question for $1 million, I think, is how we develop the learning process of each player inside of a team. Yes, this is a very difficult process, but I think that at this moment, playing in high-level practice and in the national team, we don't have time for the individual development, but we can use the individual capabilities to also adapt our strategy to what we want. Or more than that, in the national team is easy because we can choose the players with the capabilities that George Brage wants to put the team playing as they want to. But if we move on to the low level of practice and for youth practice, I think that our practice should have both perspectives. Our first perspective is that the coach should in first instance develop the players, because if he cannot develop the players, our possibilities for the team possibilities for action will decrease. So the coach perspective should be, if I improve each player and if I create, for instance, during the parts of the training sessions, exercises that promote the individual development, their development will contribute to improve the capabilities of the team. So in my perspective, and even more, we should balance what we want for the development of the team and for the development of the players. And I think that for the future, I don't know, but in my perspective, what's happened on, for instance, on NBA will occur in other sports, because in fact, the best players will be the best players are not only being developed during the training session for the team, but they have individual training sessions to improve their own capabilities. And I think that for us that come from ecological dynamics and for the people that is playing in this area, I think that this is a market to use it for the future, because the players will need individual coaches that are available to create training exercises that help the players not to improve their skills surrounding cones, but improving their skills based on the relationship between the perception and action behavior, and link it with what the coach wants to develop in that player. So I think that this is other area of research, and this is only my perspective, but I think that is something that we need also to explore in terms of research, but also in terms of practice.
Yeah, I have so many questions regarding this last
very good
answer. Many questions regarding this kind of individual. How can we do some kind of individual training without decontextualizing the training?
Yeah. What wonderful questions, wonderful discussion. We are going out of time, but this means how rich are these discussions?
Yeah, do we have 2 more hours to stay here and discuss these ideas?
This is the wonderful of these discussions. When we end up the session, we are starting a whole new one for the future. For sure, we will come back. Thank you very much, Bruno. It was a wonderful discussion that we have during this more than half an hour. Next week, we will have Natalia Balaguer from Barcelona discussing ideas about network physiology of exercise. I don't know, Pedro, if you want to mention something about the Congress. Or,
no, the Congress is improving. We are receiving lots of abstracts and already participants. Again, we would like to reinform, special for the Portuguese, the participation on the Congress will have some credits, 4.4 credits for the training exercise careers, and we are looking forward and are awaiting that maybe today we can announce that also for the coach's career we will have credits to provide for the participants. So I'm looking forward for the Congress. The time is decreasing until 13th of July, and I hope to see you soon. Bruno, thank you very much. It was a nice discussion, and I think we can schedule another one.
Very good. Thank you very much. Have a nice week, you all.
Have a nice day.
Thank you so much.